Okay, one last little trick here. Thinking about giving our ADSR a polyphonic gates. So our envelopes that are generated are polyphonic. So some of these get triggered, some do not. What I had happening before, once I had this like sequence thing happening, I had gate coming in here. So the trigger from the sequencer is coming into ADSR, triggering that. So our envelope, you can see, is only a monophonic signal. So all three of our polyphonic channels are being triggered. When I had the MIDI CV module hooked up, so with my computer keyboard here, I was pressing keys at different times. Then that was effectively creating polyphonic gate input that I was triggering the ADSR with. So what if I wanted some more complexity where like sometimes like these are gated, sometimes they're not. So enter a couple more new modules. So this Polymult by Bulgario and Polychances. So Polychances is really the same thing that we're used to already. This Bernoulli gate that we've used a lot, which is, we have a trigger input, and according to some probability, sometimes it'll go out A, sometimes out B. Chances by Count Modula does the exact same thing, where we have an input trigger and a probability, and it'll sometimes go out A and sometimes out B. There's this other kind of setting for latch and toggle, which you can look up the details of that. Polychances does the same thing, except it expects a polyphonic gate input, and then coming out of this out A or out B, it will give independent probability calculations for each of those polyphonic channels. So what does that mean? So what I'm doing here, so this trigger coming from our sequence 3 is just a monophonic signal, right? If I just plug that into the input here, we can see that it's just behaving like a normal like Bernoulli gate or like a normal chances, because there's only one channel. So red means it's going out A, green means it's going out B. So if I were to connect this like so, that's just doing the same as before, but it's just doing it according to probability now. What if this input coming in was a polyphonic cable? Enter Polymult, which is an easy way to convert a monophonic cable to a polyphonic one. So just go into out, and up here in Chan, we tell it how many channels do you want to make, like 8, 12, 16, whatever you want. So let's do, I guess in this we're only using 3, right? So we can just do 3 if we have more, it's not a big deal because it'll just discard the ones that we're not using. But I'll do 3 here, so we can see the cable becomes polyphonic cable. And you can see now we've got 3 different probability calculations that are happening every time that's triggered. And coming out, actually, down here in the voltage, we can't see it because the trigger is so fast. It's only for one sample. But we can see here that sometimes it's triggering all 3, sometimes just one, sometimes it's 2. So it's got some variation to which ones are being triggered, which is kind of nice. Okay. So that is, that's just showing this, this polyphonic idea. We're using it before to carry V-oct signals to create like a chord, like different pitches that we're actually hearing. But it's completely arbitrary too. Like this polyphonic cable is carrying gate information. We could create different like LFOs that are all kind of smushed together into a poly cable, and then that goes somewhere to affect some CV things, some modulate it in various ways. So whatever, it doesn't just have to be VOCT stuff. Also, so this polymult thing, just to show, there's like many ways to do the same thing. We could do the same thing with another merge. Actually, let me just copy this. Command D to duplicate. I could have done something like boom, boom, boom. So that just did the same thing. It was just like more work. I'm like creating more cables here. So if I wanted to create more, I have to like manually kind of do this, and then it just kind of gets cluttered. I've got like now all these cables to create 6 channels on my polyphonic thing. So easier and cooler is just using this polymult. One input, monophonic, set how many channels, and then one poly output according to those numbers of channels. Okay.